Welcome to the DeLorean Challenge. This is a little something I like to do every few game versions to kind of reassess the difficulty. We're coming up on the final version of Alrima that's going to be pushed to the public branch, so everyone will be playing it. It might already be out when this video comes up. And I'm simply going to try to do what DeLorean did and see how it goes for me. But wait, what's a DeLorean? It's the funny silver car from Back to the Future, right? Well, of course, it's named after John DeLorean. John DeLorean did a lot of things, but he's most known for being an engineer at General Motors, and he worked in the Pontiac division and basically started the muscle car wars with the Pontiac GTO. He's a legendary automotive engineer. By the time the 70s came around, he split ways with General Motors. His time at General Motors was often marked by fighting against the company's own internal rules. That same famously successful Pontiac GTO was only possible because he found a loophole allowing him to stuff their largest engine in their smaller car, which he wasn't supposed to be allowed to do, but he could do it as an optional extra. He also complained about rules against multiple carburetors on an engine. When he left, he said, "There's no forward response at General Motors to what the public wants today. A car should make people's eyes light up when they step into the showroom. Rebates, which General Motors was using as their marketing strategy at the time, are merely a way of convincing customers to buy bland cars they're not interested in." So when he left, he decided that he would make that forward-thinking car that makes a customer's eyes light up when they step into the showroom. And that would be the DeLorean. So what I'm going to do is try to follow along as closely as possible to what he did in real life and see how much changes I have to make before I can make it a successful company without going bankrupt. I'll just be following the Wikipedia article for details, but don't scroll down too far because there's spoilers. In short, I'm playing the game as a campaign based in Gasmia, that's closest to the United States, on close to default, insane difficulty settings, which is not normally very hard to do. I'm starting with $80 million cash. Now, that might be a little harsh compared to real life. Wikipedia here says that he started with $200 million of investment money, but $120 million was from the British government. And I'm going to interpret that $120 million as a loan and not part of my starting money. Also, that's in 1975 dollars, and in automation, all prices are pegged to 2012 inflation. In fact, technically, it's supposed to be Australian dollars, although it happens to be the case that in 2012, that's nearly 1-to-1 with US dollars, so it makes our math easy. So the DeLorean, made by DeLorean Motor Company, was supposed to be a sports car / grand tourer. He wanted to use some really innovative technology for this car. Now, of course, what I'm going to do is try to make a replica of the DMC DeLorean here in automation. I'm not going to do all the visual details yet, because I'll probably go bankrupt. I only want to design one car for the drive-by shots you've probably seen at the start of this episode. And I forgot to set the starting year to 1975. Now, first of all, about the DeLorean, it's a two-seater car. It doesn't even have little miniature seats in the back for kids. So it's described as a grand tourer, meaning sort of a luxury sports car that's comfortable for long road trips. But in automation, the grand touring market needs to have 4 seats or more. So in actuality, we won't be targeting that market. It'll strictly be for sports cars, also maybe supercars, or muscle cars. All of these are okay with 2-seaters. Now we know what that thing looks like. I have to choose a suitable body. For our markers, it has to be a coupe, and the DeLorean was rear engine, so we're choosing a body that supports that. I'm thinking this might be a good one. Or this newer body. You know, this suits the look more. So about the basic construction of this car, this is going to affect our costs a lot. Obviously, it's famous for its stainless steel body panels. Well, reading the Wikipedia for the basic plan on this car is remarkable. During the initial planning, it planned to use all technology we can't make in automation. It was planned to be a mid-engine car with a Wankel rotary engine. That's right, this sports car basically would have been the same as Mazda's race car, and unlike anything that ever saw street use. But they were going to get these Wankel engines supplied by a company called Co-Motor that basically went out of business and failed to produce motors. So they went on to a V6, which would end up being rear-mounted. They also planned to build the chassis with a new technology called elastic reservoir molding out of plastic. Yes, plastic. Now, I have no idea how to make that in automation, and I guess they didn't have any idea how to make it in real life either, because they ultimately failed to do this. What they ended up doing was hiring Colin Chapman from Lotus. He made a backbone chassis derived from the Lotus Esprit at the time, and a fiberglass underbody which the steel panels would be attached to. Now, logically, I'm not sure if that means we should be using steel or fiberglass in the game, but I'm going to assume this avoided much of the complex construction and steel presses, and choose a fiberglass panel material here. And let's say that chassis is closest to a space frame, which I think is not completely unreasonable. This also involves some fancy epoxy anti-rust coating, which didn't work out. We'll just say we're spending a little extra money on galvanized steel. Rear engine, and it had a double wishbone in the front and a multi-link system in the back, but at this point in the game, we actually don't have that unlocked. Maybe I should have started with some base tech pool to represent the company being run by a famous engineer. But we're at 0 for now. Or +2 for nationality. Paint, of course, has to be that silver. Some people painted them colors aftermarket and then made a handful of gold-coated cars. But most of them should look like this. Now, as for the engine, they shopped around for a few third parties to buy a motor from and settled on the PRV, that's Peugeot Renault Volvo V6, which was an all-aluminum 90-degree V6 with an overhead cam. Very unusual. The one they used was 91 by 73. And we've already run into a problem, which is that's actually not even close to fitting in our chassis in the game here. So, let's just pick a different friggin' body, who cares? This guy this time. Not convertible, 2.4 meter wheelbase. And it apparently fits just fine. Good. I don't know exactly what the internal materials were, but I know we're not making a ton of horsepower when this is all done. It's supposed to make 130 horsepower. We can even go for the real compression ratio, although I'm willing to change that if automation doesn't like it. And it had Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection, which is an early electronic fuel injection. I think it's actually probably closer-ish to what we'd call mechanical fuel injection automation than a standard EFI setup. Apparently, a lot of them made more horsepower than this, but they had to be detuned a lot for emissions. There were some versions sold in Europe that made 154 horsepower. There was a manual automatic. We'll just go with the manual. Open diff, probably. Now, a lot of these decisions resulted in redesigning the car halfway through. So, strictly speaking, we're already on a head start by designing the car that we actually want to build the first time around. Alloy wheels, disc brakes, under tray, why not? A little cooling. Premium interior. Non-hydraulic rack and pinion? At least that's a good choice in automation, because it is a rear engine. You don't have much weight in the front wheels. Whatever, safety. And I have to fix this steering graph, because it says the car is trying to kill you. I've also gone with the real tire width, where they're staggered by quite a lot already. A lot of toe and a heavy front sway bar brings it under control. So, initial results in terms of stats after just a quick setup, like making sure that the, brake lines are where the brake lines should be, and suspension lines where the suspension lines should be, and that sort of thing. I can stiffen up a little bit too. Well, first things first, sports cars can be our main demographic by desirability. Second, it's bad. 40%. And let's be frank, for the sales of the real DeLorean, that's about accurate. People did not want this weird car that only had 2 seats and wasn't actually very fast, even though it looked crazy. Also, performance-wise, we are currently sitting way, way better than the real thing. 6 seconds 0 to 60 and 136 miles an hour top speed. They had a claimed 8.8 seconds 0 to 60 and 130 top speed, but magazine reviews supposedly found those to be much worse, like 10 seconds in real life tops or 0 to 60 and 110 miles an hour top speed. The main difference that I think I'm noticing is our car weighs under 900 kilos, whereas the real car was a little over 1200. So maybe my chassis choice wasn't very accurate. It was something dumb like a heavy-duty ladder frame. That might be more like it. I'm not sure if that's kind of a better representation of a backbone chassis in automation or not, but, whatever. Even going all to steel panels doesn't get us up there in the weight compared to the real thing. But we can optimize weight heavier. We'll say we're building it to be comfortable and durable. And hey, if nothing else, it's easy to engineer. We can turn another quality point in there. In fact, I spent a few more quality points here and there. Better brakes means I can also go to more comfortable brake pads. And we're looking at 47% desirability. So it's still an odd duck of a car. Maybe it'll find an audience, though. Oh, and I have to make sure this thing hits emission standards. Which wasn't that hard to do. Just lean it out a little bit. And apparently the mechanical fuel injection lets me have a Lambda 1 area, which I didn't realize was an option. I thought it was like carburetors where you can't use this setting. But that's our weird, emissions-strangled, not very powerful, rear-engine 2-seater sports car with a wacky body and body construction as well. Now the other thing. Wikipedia says that the car was planned to launch for a price of $12,000. That's the equivalent of about $30,000 in automation dollars, or $43,000 today. Damn, there's a lot of inflation in the last 10 years. But it ended up going for $25,000, the equivalent of $60,000 in automation, or $90,000 today. Well, we'll price it reasonably based on what our factory comes out to be. We don't need to get the car out right away. I think I'll aim for 2 years getting it right. That means it's going to come out much earlier than the real DeLorean did. Our engine will of course be from an outsourced factory, and wow, $12,000 per engine. I know it's expensive to buy engines outsourced, but damn, that's like the price of the entire car, or a third of what it was supposed to be, more than a third. We're gonna have a made in Fruinia because that's slightly cheaper. Speaking of being made where it is slightly cheaper, the real John DeLorean took advantage of industrial loans by the British government to make the factory in Northern Ireland. The idea, I think, was that if people were not unemployed, they would be less willing to become terrorists, because that was kind of a problem. So the cheapest country available to us right now in automation, Arcana, I think, would almost be the equivalent, because you have very low labor skill, very cheap land. And they did have problems with low labor skill in the real factory, but that's locked until 1990. So for now, our best option would be Fruinia, where the labor costs are the lowest. They're not super low, but they're lower than the other countries. This will be, come on, our Dunmurry factory. Now, as for our starting factory, Wikipedia says that the factory in Dunmurry was 61,000 square meters. And that is equivalent to some size of factory and automation here. They keep changing how the tooltip works, and I'm not sure where I can find what area the factory is supposed to be. This is something they've actually done in the game, is they've modeled these factory sizes after real car factories and output numbers. But I do know that we're aiming to sell 12,000 cars a year, so medium 1 might be about it. And this might be a point to make a bit of a different decision, because this galvanization plant costs, what is that? Almost $60 million? It says 40 million, but it clearly adds more than that to the total cost of the factory, because I guess there's, I don't know, tooling the first time or something. I think I'd be much better off if I took that galvanized steel off of the car. I don't think the customers actually care about that very much anyway. Well, I do have access to corrosion-resistant steel, apparently. I just can't... I can't force myself to roleplay properly when there's just no benefit to it. The markets do not want to pay extra money for corrosion-resistant steel. So let's say regular steel. These things will rust out. The real ones have problems with rusting out because that epoxy coating didn't work. So that's kind of sort of close to real life. Anyway, I can't figure out the square footage supposed to be. But I do know they're aiming for 12,000 cars a year, so this is about right. Making 1,000 cars per month for 2 ships. And let's try to not pay very much money for our workers. And they won't be very good at what they do. It's going to take us 21 months to build this factory. Let's say we want to hire 1 core shift of workers. Take those wages all the way down. And save $1,000 per car that way. I can't afford to buy SMC injectors, which makes that fiberglass body more efficient to build. So right now the engine costs more than half of the entire car's expenses. Even though it's a very underwhelming engine, it is not optimized for automation game production at all. I'm sure that the real DeLorean Motor Company was not spending $15,000 or the inflation equivalent per engine. And it seems worth it to buy the most expensive tools. It adds kind of a small percentage to our total costs, but makes the cars cheaper to build. And more of them, with less workers. This level of automation is about peak efficiency. Now, I don't know if in real life the DeLorean factory was set up wrong in terms of how much tooling and what processes were done by hand. It's very possible that it was. I'm just going to do it right in automation. So let's see, that ends up with a production cost of $30,000 per car. Remember, in automation dollars, or 2012 dollars, the real-life DeLorean was planned to launch the price of $30,000 and ended up being at $60,000. So if I set prices to $60K, Well, it's warning me no one wants to buy it. See, in real life, DeLorean did not have this graph that says, hey, nobody wants to buy the car. Well, let's split the difference at $45,000, which is a fairly reasonable 50% margin. And right now, yes, the game is certainly telling me I'm going to go bankrupt, which seems about accurate for a bad car that nobody wants. And sure enough, I can take out a loan for in the vicinity of $120 million. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set that payback time to, yeah, as long as possible, more or less. We can't afford large monthly payments. Factory costs $160 million. It's too much. I can at least try not to go bankrupt in the first month. Real company did better than that. Let's skip the SMC injectors. We can't afford that. So, there's one more trick to me setting the engineering time at 2 whole years, which isn't really necessary. That's going to give us a lot of time to spend our starting cash on marketing. Because we're kind of an unknown company, we need to do that. And that makes sense. John DeLorean might have been kind of famous in car guy circles for what he did at GM, but it's not exactly a household name. And we're going to do our marketing solely in the United States. Quarter-mile time market straight to muscle for very cheap. Not that we can really sell it there. Let's just go on sportiness for now. And I think we need to expand our headquarters so we can do more marketing. And of course we're losing money as the loan doesn't cover the whole factory construction, which is going to take a long time. 21 months I think it was to build our whole factory. Not too far off from the real one, it says it built in 18. We market the car on top speed, even though it doesn't have a lot of top speed. It's very cheap to do that. And spend more on sportiness marketing. And prestige, are we prestigious? It costs us a lot. Man, already we have an F credit score and negative company value. It took 5 years for the real DeLorean to come out, which isn't likely to happen in this game version where you have that discounted 3 years at the start of your engineering. So of course it's going to launch in the late 70s instead of early 80s. And here it is, the DMC DeLorean, replica as it is. 5 sales. 5 more sales. Ooh. We should fire some workers. The British government won't be happy with that. We're getting $200 in emissions credits, because we are very good on emissions. Let's see, in 2 years, what have we got for dealerships? 0.25. Oh gosh, it's awful. And 8% awareness. No, our dealerships are in supercars. We're getting our sales. Our sales are in supercar market and muscle premium. Not to sport, because we might be too expensive? Yeah, I think that's the case. We're priced out of the basic sports market, so super and muscle premium are the ones who can actually afford our car. Maybe we can add a trim. Will that save us? The automatic trim? 3-speed auto isn't really selling to anybody, but it's what they did in real life, so we'll put one in. And because we can, we'll see if we can make a luxury version. Really, in a medium factory, you should normally have a lot of trims, especially starting off when your market awareness is low. There we go. Luxury interior, luxury 8-track. And discounted prices, for sure. Let's drop to a 40% margin on everything. It's not projected to help, but, you know, we're doing something. Geez, 3 years? Oh, it's all that luxury interior. Takes forever. Delete that trim. Cut some reliability. Up the pressure. We're making no changes to the engine. Can't afford it. And we're going to have to start taking out emergency loans in just a few months. And bam, 2 years after the car goes into production, we are bankrupt. You know what? That's a successful result. It's right on schedule for the real DeLorean Motor Company. So I'd say that the game difficulty is working as intended. Now instead of DeLorean Motor Company, let's make DMC. It's the same thing. Still 80 million starting money. I think we're going to go for the same insane strategy of starting off in that medium-sized factory. But we'll try to build a car that's actually good, rather than one that's the same as a real DeLorean. People might like it because it's quirky, but it sucked. So now we're using automation to answer the question, could DeLorean have succeeded in his plan to suddenly jump into production of a large-scale automotive brand, making large production numbers of sports cars to rival the ones that he sold at GM, if his car was actually pretty good? I must have filtered out this body because of the size or something earlier. But this is like the exact DeLorean body. So we know, going in, oh my gosh, the truck body default, that's so insane. I gotta choose one, all right. Okay, yeah, I got distracted. So we know, once we start production of our new GT car, because of the scale of production, we won't be able to get that price down into the regular sports car market. It's just not going to happen, unless we really cut on features somehow. So the more realistic option to get good sales is to keep aiming at that up market, and then give it a bigger engine accordingly, and at least 2+2 seats. I'm gonna see if we can't still make it a mid-engine car. Rear isn't an option on this car, but they wanted to be mid in the first place. But it's gotta be 2+2. I'll have to figure out the body supports that or not. Looking at this body, it won't let me make an engine that's like a V8 because it's too tall. So let's say a boxer. I'm looking at aluminum overhead cam, kind of like that V6 that was in the real car. Still something that looks a little bit goofy for engineering. I think even though he worked at GM and made great V8 pushrod motors, he wanted to do something different. That was the whole point of setting off making his own company. This is different enough. Alright, as a mid-engine, this car does not support the 2+2 seats. That's crucial. It's actually going to be kind of hard to find a body that does do that, but I need to pick one out. Let's say not front engine, it can be anything in the rear, but it has to have 2-seat rows. Let's bring us back to this body. The 2.5 meter wheelbase, a little longer. Rear engine. It fits in there. Rear engine 6-cylinder boxer American. We're making a Chevy Corvair. Could do worse though, for fulfilling weird ideas. At this point, does it do a V8 well? Yeah, it fits. We'll make the V8. Aluminum overhead cam V8. And that gets us our 2+2. Now, I have a lot to tune, but we're off to a better start. We're looking at like 70% almost desirability in GT. I'd like to be able to hit muscle premium as well. We've got the big engine, so I think we can do it. It's still awkward making any rear engine car work well, but we're gonna try. So I've also decided to go for a luxury interior off the bat. That's what we'll offer. It's around that price range anyway. Now, once I've set the car up, and I haven't even tuned the engine quite yet, we're doing quite well in GT, but that's it. I'd like to maybe hit muscle premium and super better. Sport I shouldn't worry about as much, because it's going to be lower than our price range. So muscle premium's interesting. We're doing quite well in the base stats. They have a stat importance for power distribution. I think they mean it has to be rear-wheel drive. And we're good there. They also have power, where we are at 157. That's the performance index, not horsepower. It's got to be the width of the curve. Don't want to be too peaky. Like a small turbo motor would be a narrow power peak. We want torque too. Competitors are apparently at 373 for the best one, and an engine displacement of about 7 liters, whereas we're at 4.7. So if we want to hit well in muscle premium, we need stupid power and stupid displacement. We're actually doing well in quarter mile time, which is also very important. That said, if I turn this engine into a monster, I'm not sure if I'm going to scare the GT buyers off. But let's see what we can do. Oops, if I make it too big, it doesn't fit in the car. In fact, I want to watch out for having it be too long, because then you can't reach in front of the engine and increases the service costs. We can stroke it out, though. 5 liters. That'll do. Oh, we need to have dual exhausts. That's a problem. I was choking it. There, now our 5-liter overhead cam V8 is more in the 300 horsepower range. That's helping us in super and muscle premium. We're doing still pretty poor there. I feel like we have the makings of a supercar. I'm not quite sure why it's not competing. Yeah, I've also got to pay attention to the reliability map here. They've changed, how it works by a lot. It's not quite just an arbitrary score. It's based on this mean time to failure, where your worst part matters a lot. In our case, that's the fuel system. The mechanical fuel injections, just kind of experimental. It could be a lot more reliable without it, but I feel like, almost on principle, I want to stay with that. That's something creative. On the other hand, if I hold my engine, put like a 4-barrel, I do gain a lot of reliability. And if I want, I can also increase the quality on that a lot. Costs a lot of horsepower, though. They do like it more with the carburetor. Reliability was a complaint. No, I also got switched to compact intake manifold somehow. And that was killing performance. Much better. Now, if I go absolutely nuts and throw a supercharger on there, then it gets all these markets we're targeting just a little bit more interested. Up with price, but whatever. So there, 343 horsepower at the wheels, 180 miles an hour top speed. Giant supercharged V8 in the back of the car. I don't know if anybody ever built something like that. We still have complaints about reliability. It's a penalty there. But we're seeing we have some actual markets for this thing. I also went ahead and made a version with just a premium interior, so it's a little cheaper. Oh, failing safety standard, what the hell? Is that... I think it's just for Helvetia, this failing safety standard, if I had to guess. don't care about selling there. And since we know reliability is a problem, I'm going to crank this slider up. Now here's where it goes off the rails, is insisting we build this large factory to sell these things out of. Oh, and we're still going to underpay people. Wow, it's not very efficient to add more automation because of these production flags and the fiberglass and the luxury interior. And margins are looking awful. Went back to add 1 month to our engineering because the factory takes 21 months to build. Engineering is going to take at least that long. Car won't be ready until the factory's ready. So now, with a somewhat decent car, can we still fulfill the DeLorean dream of making a rather large car company out of nothing all at once? So let's see, we're aiming at Muscle Premium, Grand Touring Premium. Grand Touring likes top speed. Muscle likes quarter mile and displacement and power. Grand Touring doesn't want power. Super wants power. Super wants top speed. I guess we'll go straight to sportiness. And I'll expand the headquarters. We need to. We actually don't have a headquarters to handle a factory this size at all. Spend on marketing. Are we getting pre-orders? We are. People are ordering the DeLorean. Although I think just as Wikipedia says, there was initial enthusiasm, but then sales numbers fell drastically. The big issue is going to be that our factory is just too big. Also, I want to see... Sales are in Grand Touring Premium, Super, and then Muscle Premium accounts for more than half of our cars, so it's a big market. Even though our car is not as desirable to Muscle Premium, we're getting more sales there than in Grand Touring Premium, where we're considered very desirable. Because in Gasmia, they're just a bigger market. It probably would have been simpler to just make a front wheel or a front engine car with a massive engine and sell to them. And hey, the first month our new DMC car comes out, or second month, we're making money. We're on the green. Is all good for DeLorean? No, because next month we're losing $8 million. And we suddenly have about 500, 600 unsold cars in stock. Let's pause production immediately. Can we recover? No. Even with the factory pause, we're losing money. And no one's really buying our stock. Also, our loan with the British government is probably in trouble at this point because we're not employing as many workers as we said we would. And we have logistics problems. Oh, I didn't notice this. I think this is new. So I've said before it was silly that outsourced engine factories have like a limited quantity and all that. Well, now they're tracked a little more as real factories. They have worker experience, or so I'm told, and they cost logistics points. So if I need a lot of engines to the point where I'm making duplicate outsourced factories, well, I go into using too many logistics points for my small headquarters. It's a problem to source all these engines. Really, I think it should be possible to get that many engines on a contract and not have it be a huge problem, but that's how the game works, is if you have a large car factory, it suddenly becomes very impractical to outsource that many engines. And in fact, we don't need both of those factories because we're not running a high factory shift, so I'm going to cancel my outsource contract with one of them. And that's helped our logistics penalty now. We only have a 3% penalty. We're still losing lots of money though. But we're continuing to market. Sales are slowly increasing. Run the factory for 2 months and pause it again. Yeah, that's the inevitability of trying to start with a medium factory when you just don't have the market awareness. Which after 3 years now, we're up to 12 to 15% in the markets that matter. Dealership is less than 1 in Muscle Premium. Terrible. And 2-ish in GT Super, which is about what I want. Technically, we have money we could be spending on an updated car, but I'm not honestly sure just what I'd put into it. If I wait some months, we can get luxury cassettes, air springs, multi-point fuel injection that's modern. Oops, ran out of cars. Now we're back to having 600 cars in stock we're trying to sell, while the workers are waiting around in the factory. Can we update the car without going bankrupt? See if I can get a loan for it. Alright, so the first generation sold, yeah, not that great. The new car is getting... Apparently it's suddenly more desirable to Super and Hyper, just from the basic yearly updates. But we're getting a cassette player that has an early unlock penalty. We got 98, 99. We go back to 8-track and +3. We're at 94. Maybe it's not worth it. I have to dump my quality to make it work. Change up our tire size a little. Apparently our steering graph was bad. And for the engine, we'll go to fuel injection. But now that it makes monster power and can go almost 200 miles an hour, we're scoring adequate in everything from GT to Super to Muscle Premium. I feel like that's about the best we can hope for. And we'll make a cheaper premium version. Oof, 18 months. Why not sooner? I have no money. 13 months. Will we have a company by then? Our super cool fuel-injected engine makes 400 horsepower. It might end up being a myth. With only 1 or 2 prototypes built at this rate. Oh god, we can't do it. I need to take a lot of quality off the fuel system in order to actually get it out. New versions will be much cheaper. At 50,000 and 42,000. 22 months still. Even if I tank the engineering. Well, I can make the car reliable. Hey, we're actually projecting a profit on this. If I can get it to come out. Also, that's wrong, because I didn't change my engine factory. And it's not accounting for the cost of the engine, which is, $20,000 per engine. Yeah, no, we're back to projected to losing money. But I can get a loan. That'll keep us in business a little longer. Maybe. Let's just get the biggest loan we can, or we're bankrupt. How much will they... Oh, we can't take out any loans. So our cool new car is in development. But we're going to go bankrupt in 1980. Didn't quite make it to 81. Well, we lasted 5 years, or 3? 4-ish years after our car came out. We sold, what, 4,000 cars? Apparently the real DeLorean made about 9,000 cars. However, a lot of those were not sold or were sold at fire sale prices as the company was going bankrupt. So, DeLorean Motor Company failed immediately. DMC failed after a struggle. So now we have to make a good car and a good business plan. Who would have thought? Because we definitely could not sell the replica of the real DeLorean. And even with what automation says is a decent car, I could not replicate DeLorean's business plan. So let's see. Yeah, they got a slightly different company name. Sure, it's still DMC. Still 1975. And still $80 million. Now, would it be un-DeLorean-like if I just made it a front-engine car? Because I feel like that's the play here. I have to do something at least a little weird, or it doesn't feel like DeLorean at all. This body. Get 2.6 meters. Also, fiberglass, I don't think it's doing us any favors. We'll go with aluminum this time. In fact, if I go a little longer on this, can I get full seats in any of these? Gosh, no. Good plus twos. Even though it's the most DeLorean-ish looking body, here's a weird one, the 3-door coupe, they still call it. Even though it's basically going to be a hatchback at that point. The lift-back coupe, I guess. But just traditional front engine. Basically a muscle car with the engine kind of weird to make up for foreign design choices. And honestly though, going full independent suspension by like 1980 for your muscle car is already at least a little bit interesting. And in terms of American cars, basically only the Corvette was doing that at the time. And the Corvair, which was not necessarily a success. Let's see, we'll stick to aluminum block and head, but let's make it a whopper. We learned last time that muscle premium was a good market. So instead of making a GT sports car, we're making our weird muscle car. We'll go with push rods for now. We can afford to put some quality on there. 7.6 liters? That should be the biggest thing on the market. Assuming it can run. And maybe we'll supercharge it too. Or turbocharge it. I feel like turbos add to that exoticness. Not that they're necessarily something that you want in the muscle car market, because they care about displacement, and then adding those turbos doesn't make this thing make too much power to even drive. But yeah, here's the too much power to even drive. And we'll see if we can survive mechanical fuel injection reliability penalties, because a turbo likes that more. Carburetors and turbos act weird together. Not that it needs a lot of boost. I mean, I'm already killing reliability with this turbo. Make up a little bit by having a carburetor. They did consider a turbo engine for the DeLorean, although it would have been a 2-liter turbo. They were looking at buying an engine from Citroën that was a 2-liter engine and then adding a turbocharger to it, which Citroën advised them not to do that, and they went with that Volkswagen one. So we're at 457 horsepower. That's easily supercar territory. That does put us in something that's kind of exotic in that we're, well, I guess those are mid-engine cars, but we're kind of making a crazy American supercar like your, you know, Vector or De Tomaso that never really got the production numbers to compete with something like a Ferrari. We're keeping it front engine though, keeping it simple. And turbograph. Do that. And then do a little what do you do? We need to tune it down. Boost it up. There used to be a specific warning about how much boost you could do with a carburetor before it caused problems. And hey, we're making 500 horsepower. It kind of gets choked by the turbo at the end. Go very stiff springs, we can rev it to the moon and get more power. And by the moon, I mean 5,000, which is not actually impressive or even stressing out our internals, despite the huge size of the motor. In fact, speaking of which, if it's not stressing out our internals, then I can give it more stroke. 8.2 liter motor we're at now, turbocharged. I'm thinking we can probably find a market for this. Throttle response is not good. There's a lot of boost lag on this monster. We don't even have ball bearings for the turbo. And yeah, we'll give you a manual 5-speed to control all that power. I think it's gotta be power steering since that huge engine's in the front now. And they hate it. They hate this car. I need to design an actually good car. Maybe my premise is completely wrong. My premise being an 8-liter V8 with a turbocharger. So to make a long story short, I've put together the car, and I'm not seeing as much green in this part of the screen as I want to. It's not as desirable as I hoped, especially in muscle premium, which is apparently a category that we should be aiming for. Now, I thought that just making it a front-engine, rear-wheel drive V8, a little more conventional setup, would have it do better than that version I set up last time, although so far that's not the case. But I'm going to take a few minutes and see what I can do to gain some back some desirability if this is the version of the car that I need to make. Looking at muscle premium in particular, we're low on sportiness, we're low on comfort, okay on drivability compared to whatever the average bestseller is. And we're low on prestige. I'm not sure what they're doing for more prestige. I guess it being a bigger vehicle. Maybe? Yes, average muscle premium competitor has more footprint. And more horsepower, even though they have a smaller engine. They went for a super large engine this time, 8.2 liters. Going to manual power steering instead of hydraulic does us better in GT premium and muscle premium by a noticeable amount. It costs us some comfort, but it gains us sportiness, which is more important. This seems like, in my opinion, a horrible idea for a car that has an engine in the front that weighs 370 kilograms. But yeah, sure, eliminate the power steering. It'll feel better. Okay, this is what you want to see when you're ready to sell a new car. Mostly what I did, I threw on a supercharger on the engine. It's making 500 horsepower now. Looks like that, looks like a monster. And I added a lot of quality to basically every category. This is going to be a premium car, and this is what people expect. And the NPC competitor cars are going to be using a lot of quality. I went to plus 10 on this manual steering rack. It doesn't cost me very much to do that. So there, in this timeline, instead of being a rear engine car with a Volkswagen or French 6-cylinder, the DeLorean has a goofy looking body, but just a massive supercharged V8 up front. It's a real muscle car. And it's still, for 1975, pretty exotic by American standards, because it has independent rear suspension, which was basically only on the Corvette, and even that was like a weird version, because they just insisted on making it have truck parts. I'm going to have one variant, a version with a cheaper interior, and the same everything else. So we have 2 price points for the car. Looking at engineering, interior is the biggest category. I might take 1 quality point off of it. The interior really shouldn't be anything longer than chassis. Matter of fact, we're looking at 62 months for chassis and 54 for interior is what it shows you in the designer, but that doesn't do a good job of taking into account the familiarity bonus of which we have none on the interior, and I assume some on the chassis, because I'm actually using a ladder frame. It gives me a discount. So this 62 months value you see here isn't really accurate. There's a +5 on the chassis. They'll like that even more. It's not going to be cheap, but they'll like it. And does that bring it about in line? I wonder. 19, 20? Yeah, pretty close. And you can see the quality in every category here. I've made sure it's always at least +2. Even if it's a category I don't really care about, because we have the tech pool. And this is going to be an expensive car, so you need to have everything be good quality. And I think we can afford to spend some time on the engineering as well. 40 months and just baseline sliders might do it. And then for the engine, we'll try and get it cheaper and more reliable. And save a little money. We're looking at, 13 million, 10 million. We're spending like a quarter of our starting budget just on engineering, which is a chunk. It might be worth it, but it's a chunk. Engine's going to be outsourced at the cost of $20,000 per one. It's a whopper. It's going to be very expensive cars. Still gonna build them for Ruinia, why not? See if I can justify a small one factory. That's so much smaller than the medium factory went to. We're actually emulating what the DeLorean company did in real life. And much more realistic for an upstart small brand. It's only gonna cost $10 million to build. You can see on the pie chart here that outsourced engine is half the whole car's cost. Labor is like a sliver. And the forecaster is telling me people are not buying this car at this price. Estimated to sell something like 700 in a year. Or 800 maybe. And if we're making, something like this, we need to get good margins on it too. Yeah, it's getting harder to sell cars. The latest update to the game that's finally gone public with includes some much more difficult competitors. Probably shouldn't be doing this. I might go ahead on a version of the car that the game is absolutely warning me will not sell at all, and spend a lot of marketing and see if it's just wrong. Projected cost $36 million. That's less than half of our starting money. We don't need a loan for this. And it's going to be in development for a few years, and we'll always be marketing that whole time. We want to hit Muscle Premium and GT and Super with probably sportiness. Let's see, for 40 months, what do I want to spend per month? I probably want to spend 10 to 20 million on marketing in 40 months, so 250,000 to 500,000 per month. Is there a secondary stat they all have in common? Muscle wants power, displacement, quarter mile time. Super wants power. GT doesn't want power. They want, I think, 0 to 60 time and smoothness and stuff. $300,000 a month on marketing. I think that's where we're at. The sportiness, prestige, and horsepower. The flyers are going to say is like, hey, we're making a car that's going to make 500 horsepower. Get ready. I'm curious. This is going to launch in 1978. How impressive is 500 horsepower for 1978? I guess the Ferrari at the time would be a Ferrari 308. It's making like 250 horsepower. Boss 302 Mustang from 1970 made 300 horsepower. Or supposedly more than advertised, but not 500 like we're making. The Lamborghini Countach and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage were in the lower 400s. And those were in like 69, 70. I guess that, we're after the fuel crisis in this case, so kind of an anomaly for making more than that. Time goes on. We're spending about $900,000 a month on everything altogether. So we'll do fine. We're use about half our starting money before we launch the car. Pre-orders are coming in, and we're also getting some cancellations of pre-orders, because that's just how it works. In fact, that's a pretty new feature, is that pre-orders will have cancellations. So if your car's a long way from coming out, it'll eventually balance out your incoming pre-orders. I think we're still net positive, but it's slowing down. People don't like to know that they're on a wait list. It's going to take a very long time. Coming close to the car coming out. That was our market awareness. 8.8% muscle premium, 8.6 in GT, 9.7 super. That's... I'd like it to be better, but that's probably not what to expect. And we're at about 3% in Helvetia and Perunia, the neighboring countries where we're not doing marketing. Very expensive to market in Gasmia. I don't think I can afford to spend more than I already am. And in summer of 1978, our car comes out. And we are... Oh, I forgot something. I forgot to make sure it passes emissions. Whoopsie daisy. We are losing a lot of money on emissions, and we're also losing money overall. Our margins are not that great. We go for it a little bit, we're making money again, but a huge part of our profits is being taken out by emissions penalties. Like, just didn't tune the engine for emissions. Let's emergency tune that, shall we? Of course, it needs a facelift of the engine. We're at WES 5 emission standard, and we need to be at... Gonna be 7? I need to go to the car to see that. Emissions. For Gasmia, we only need to hit 6, and then 7 comes in 1992. So we can hit World Emission Standards level 6. We'll be doing great in Gasmia for the foreseeable future. We're actually very close to that. But we are running a carburetor. We can go to single point EFI as well. That would just instantly do it for us. I don't think I want to make that expensive change, though. So what we have to do is lean it way out. Lean, lean, lean. A little less cams. We're going to lose power from this. Not too much power, still over 500. Little compression out. So we're pulling timing at that point. We're very close. Come on. Oh, it's costing me. Down to... Well, as I took compression off, we actually gained power because we were pulling back timing. Boost we're making. Need a little less hydrocarbons. Which means a little less fuel going to the engine. It's not helping that much at this point. Cam profile. Yep, that's going to do it. 510 horsepower, still not bad. What's it take to hit 7? I just hold the engine. I smooth out the cams, get cleaner combustion all the way down to 504 horsepower. We hit emission standard 7, which means we get paid for every car that gets sold by the government. I think I'd like to get some government subsidies to stay in business here. That's what we're doing. Also, I left it on steel rims for some reason. I think we can do alloy rims for a car that costs $60,000. Or if it's the 1970s equivalent of that money. I can spend 10 months trying to engineer it a little cheaper as well. We're trying to save some material costs, which is by far the biggest factor. And maybe it's optimistic at this point. But I think I can say I plan to stay in business and not go bankrupt. So why not do the visual design for this car? I know I'm going to want to do some shots for the start of the video with this. Before I get way into anything, I know it's got to be the classic DeLorean unfinished metal. In this case, I actually chose an aluminum instead of steel in accordance with our actual design decision. I think this chrome can go away and become plastic. And I need to pick some wheels and see if we can find ones that are similar to what's actually on the thing. As a matter of fact, I might be disappointed if there's not some proper DeLorean rims. This is getting pretty close. Alright, time to get into it. This one's a bit more of a straightforward build. Of course, I start with the morphs, and the most important one that I've changed is on the front, getting that piece of flat grille, which is pretty distinctive to the DeLorean. I was noticing just how similar it is to the Lotus Esprit that the chassis is based on after I read about that. And that's one of the big things that actually distincts it from that car to look more American, is that section of flat grille up in the front. Obviously, this is not quite as creative as most of my car builds, since I'm really just going off of one car instead of taking inspiration from a few and trying to make it my own. But I'm trying to get all the distinctive features in there, which is the, I like the little side blinkers that are built in to the bumper bars. Obviously, you can see I played with the hood scoop there and then decide against it. The clean hood looks good on this. And also built into that side bumper bar is the door handle. I never really noticed that until I was looking closely at pictures. That's also a pretty distinctive feature. It's like tucked in to the body molding there. And of course you have to have those big rear louvers because glass is old and plastic is modern. And after that, it's pretty simple. I gave the rear lights their shape by hiding them behind the edges of that grille that I used to create the rear indentation. And I used the new feature for Z depth on 2D fixtures. And I also added a little ventilation up front because it is a front engine car. So there, that's my take on a front engine DeLorean with more seating room. Kind of a stretch DeLorean. Honestly, I can't say I think it's as good looking as the original, but it'll do. Well, I say it'll do. Hopefully it will do. I don't want to go bankrupt and have to start this over again. And I am going to take a loan because we're running out of money. So what we saw in our first generation launch is that we made money for like a few months, and then we ran out of pre-orders. And now we're overproducing because our factory is really just too big. And there's not that much demand, even though they're very desirable cars, and they're even reasonably affordable for these premium markets. Which, what's our market size? 200 muscle premium buyers, 100 GT buyers. Yeah, you'd think we'd be doing a little better than like 5 sales. Well, within market awareness, we're at 23% market share in GT Premium. That's actually very good. And 7% in Muscle Premium is okay. So we're going to pause production already. And it says we're basically never going to sell all these old cars. And then the incoming models are going to be about $10,000 cheaper. In fact, I think these pre-orders are cannibalizing our sales of the old model. I'm going to scrap our existing stock at a loss. Ooh, we made money very briefly. What's going on? We have pre-orders. Marketing. Production, return deposits. I'm not actually selling cars, I'm taking pre-orders. Okay. If I sell cars, maybe I'll make money. There's a genius idea for a car company. Actually sell the cars. Our salesmen, our car dealerships were panicking, like, oh no, they're coming. They're totally coming. They told us they're coming next month. I don't know why we didn't get our deliveries already. Of course, we're still overproducing and back in the red after a few months. This really should be like a tiny factory car instead of a small factory car just because of how much it costs. At least we have some kind of revenue. Pause production already. We have about 100 cars in stock, and they are slowly selling. We are paying our factory workers who are sitting idle, but that's not really the worst thing in the world. It seems like if I modulate the factory on and off, we can run at a profit. It would have been better to make a smaller factory. The forecaster did not lie. But I'm not quite going bankrupt. Market awareness is creeping upward. We're in the 15% range. Sales are hitting GT Premium, and Muscle Premium only. We also sold a single Muscle Premium car in Fruinia to one of their not very many buyers in that category. Someone in Italy wanted an American muscle car, and we sold it to him. Somewhat famously, Enzo Ferrari once said that however many buyers there are for Ferrari cars, they want to make one less, so their cars are always in demand. The prices stay high and people are urgently looking for them. I'm doing some kind of horrible kludge of that by turning my factory on and off and periodically causing my dealerships to panic when they can't get a car. It's not benefiting me in the same way it's benefiting Ferrari, though. Pause production again, 1982. Now, we're getting very close at this point, we're still making money, to the time when the real DeLorean company went bankrupt. Yes, that was in October of 1982. Now, you might be wondering what happened to the DeLorean Motor Company in October of 1982. Well, they filed for bankruptcy, but more importantly, something happened to John DeLorean in October of 1982. Our company is struggling. Maybe not struggling as much as the real DeLorean Motor Company, but we are struggling. This brings us to the point, if you've looked at the Wikipedia page, there's a section on John DeLorean called Arrest and Trial. In his own words, DeLorean needed $17 million in a hurry to prevent his company from going insolvent. This led to him getting involved in a deal to sell about $24 million of cocaine. Now, in actuality, this was an FBI sting. John DeLorean himself would later try to back out of the deal, but the people he was talking to threatened his family if he backed out. So he stayed in and was arrested for it. Those people who threatened him were FBI agents, so he would be acquitted on entrapment. The moral of the story is you should never, ever, ever trust the FBI. But in 1982, the public doesn't know this is going on. All they know is that DeLorean's been arrested on a cocaine deal, and that did not help the company's reputation. After he was acquitted, DeLorean said, "Would you buy a used car from me? Here's a question I'm sure you weren't asking. How do we simulate that in automation? Well, I've used my database browser to open up my save file. I'm in the company prestige and reputation table. To simulate me, the CEO of the company, getting arrested on a cocaine deal, I'm going to set our prestige and reputation to -30. This is basically similar to what would happen in the game if we had a major recall get discovered that I had ignored. Here I go. I targeted a random company with that cocaine scandal. What I need to do is filter the table by my company ID, and then just pick all 5 countries for the latest internal days number. I think that should do it. Right changes. Yep, I've destroyed my company's prestige and reputation. In the last month, we had, 12 deliveries, 19 deliveries, let's say 24 new orders, we'll go by that, of the DeLorean. And oof, that reputation hit caused our orders to drop by 1/3. Exactly. We're on 16 new orders. Our reputation and prestige are already gradually increasing from their very negative value, but it's going to take a little while. I don't know if we can stay in the money until then. It's already time to pause the factory again. We have a very interesting looking expense graph. We're turning a profit anytime the factory is shut down and we're selling the leftover cars. It's really just a question at this point of whether our marketing can grow our market awareness enough to retroactively justify our factory, which is too large. Our growth has slowed down a good bit, by the way, in terms of market awareness. Yeah, still has. I don't want to have the other countries selected, but still lowering a lot. But we're spending enough on marketing that I can't really justify spending a lot more. I mean, like, we're going bankrupt. I think what I need to do is I was marketing on power, just helping us in the supercar market. We're not getting any sales in that market. I'm marketing on engine capacity, which goes directly to muscle premium, where we do actually get sales. Oh, this is nightmarish. Pause production again, and money creeps back in. Now it's 1984, the time when DeLorean was actually acquitted, and maybe also true to real life, our prestige and reputation have only recovered by half of the damage that was done. 10 years later, we're not bankrupt. We're still barely managing to sell the cars we're making. Before I'm proud enough to call this a real success, I'd like to see the factory operating steadily. And our sales are growing. That's one thing that's very hard in automation, is just starting off with no dealership levels. And we're growing a little bit. Our two markets, GT Premium and Muscle Premium, making our 23 car sales. In fact, I'd say our sales numbers are back to what they were before the scandal. But on the balance, it feels like we're still losing money. Revenue gradually trending up, although it's spiky and bouncy. Now it's 1987. We're still in business, we're still selling the same cars. I'm not sure if I have money to do a refresh of them. They become less desirable. Maybe I'll see if I do have the money for that. A third generation. That's definitely something the real DeLorean never got. At this point, 8 tracks are out and cassette players are in. That's probably going to be the biggest change we make. I could try to invest in fuel injection, although I'm just not sure that the money's there for the time. Little market chart here is telling me that the desirability would not go up if I switch to that. I would gain like 100 horsepower, but the reliability is too bad still for that new technology. I don't know how many cars were still carbureted in 1987, but ours is going to be. And there's some fancy tech like air springs. I'm just not seeing the need for it. It's not really in the DeLorean spirit of like doing all the crazy new stuff. But the DeLorean spirit's been beat down by running out of money and getting arrested. We're gonna be conservative with this facelift. Oh, cool. It's telling me that this upgrade is gonna take forever. Just putting cassette players in the cars is gonna take like 3 years and $40 million, which is money that we positively do not have. I mean, I guess it's been like 10 years since our last facelift, so everything is that much newer. So, no, we can't afford to do anything. This is not the sign of a successful car company, by the way, in case you were wondering. I think the thing to do to be successful would have been to just make the factory even smaller from the get-go and trust the forecaster. But hey, we're having slightly longer on periods for the factory. We're losing a little less money while the factory's on, and gaining a little more money while the factory's off. It's still a slow death spiral. In fact, our sales numbers do seem to have leveled out. They're no longer growing. Now that we hit 1990, looking at a car factory, our building's getting run down because I haven't refreshed it. Our tooling's still in good shape because we're not making that many cars. Our market awareness is now in the vicinity of 30% in our biggest markets. It hasn't absolutely translated into more sales, because our cars are getting less desirable as time goes on. Now I'd say we'd be in position to launch a new car and make lots of money, except we need to have money for that first, and ooh. Revenue just stopped because I stopped selling cars again. That's all. I need to make cars. Sales have grown to 30 cars a month. Still not numbers that are impressing anybody. Game score of 420. Woohoo. Well, it's the end of 1995. We've been in business for 20 years. We also haven't updated our car in 15 years, but don't worry about that part. In fact, I'd say this is the most miserable I've had a company be without actually going out of business automation, especially for this amount of time. But it looks like I'm kind of trapped in a spot where that's the only way it's going to go. I'm sure if I'd followed my own advice from my own tutorial video and made an even smaller factory, I'd be growing a little more naturally at this point. But still, we're in business. I'm going to call that a successful DeLorean challenge. Even though I bet that if you guys try it, you could do better. But of course, the interesting part is what we've learned about automation's game balance. Just like in real life, if you try to make the car DeLorean made in the factory DeLorean made it in, you will go bankrupt. In fact, even if you try to make a decent car and make a factory that size as a new company with that much money, you will go bankrupt. I think that's pretty realistic, honestly. Meanwhile, it is possible to succeed if you make a good car and start on a much smaller scale and allow yourself to grow naturally. The moral of the story being, you can't just start the game in 1975 and hope to immediately jump up to being a large company if you haven't done marketing already. I think that tracks about right, considering that the only new brands that have entered the market are stuff like Tesla, and that spent a lot more than $80 million to get started. That's all for today. Hopefully some bigger videos coming soon. But also let me know if there's any other auto manufacturers that I should try to recreate. I think one of the exciting things in automation is looking at some old attempt at a car that might have been successful and see what it can take to make it really successful. Also, like and subscribe and blah blah, you get the idea.